Hey folks, it's been a while. So I thought we would do a computer video. I have COVID-19 right now, and I've been very sick for about a week so far. But as I film this, it's my birthday. So I thought, you know what? We need to do something fun while I'm in quarantine, so why not? Let's get back into this, shall we? How about that? So, the sleeper. Remember the sleeper? Yeah. Well, this computer's changed a lot, as have a lot of other computers, which I really need to make a video about. I should do a full computer update video at some point. I've been meaning to do that for quite a while, but things kept changing with the computers, and I was just, like, nothing was ever finished yet. But I'm at a point now where I'm pretty happy with the configurations that I have for most of everything, except for this one. And this one, we're going to do together, because look how fun this is. It's beige. So, let's start with what's in this machine. Alright, it's an Intel board that I got from from somebody online, like last year, I think. And it's an ASRock B365M HDV. And it's an Intel board that does Coffee Lake, and I think Coffee Lake S as well. It has a Celeron in it. It has a single stick of RAM in there that came with the board. And you'd think the Celeron would be the reason that I want to, you know, change this computer build out. But believe it or not, the Celeron's fine. What the problem is the board itself. As you can see, it has a lot of USB 3 on it. And the problem is that the USB 3 chipset on this board is so flaky and terrible that it's unusable. Like, I've been in an OS and tried to make, you know, boot flash drives with it. And you end up having to reset the machine like 3 or 4 times until the USB ports get picked back up. It's a nightmare, and that's in Linux. I don't know what it does in Windows, but at least in Linux, it sucks. So, I think it's time for a change, just by having a nice cooler on a Celeron and everything. So, this motherboard is the reason that this system is getting an overhaul. It's a very, very irritating USB chipset. The board itself actually is pretty solid, so I could use it in something like a server, for example, but yeah, that USB makes it kind of useless for anything that you know, takes a peripheral. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna go AMD, baby, with an A520M HDV, another HDV series board. That seems to be a thing. And look at Amazon. Oh, they're being sustainable. Oh. Yeah, I got this from the Amazon warehouse for like $40. It was a good deal I couldn't pass up. So I figured, why not? I got a chip lying around. We can build this sleeper up to actually be a decent system again. So right now it's been asleep with sleepy hardware in it. We're going to wake it up with some much more decent hardware in it. Now, I'm not sure if I made videos about these. I don't think I did, but I'm a pretty big fan of the A320M HDV ASRock motherboards. I've seen Cube Computer Channel make a lot of computers with those as well. They're pretty rock-solid motherboards. And that's why I thought I would try getting a used or refurbished or whatever this is board, an A520M version of it, since it was actually cheaper than getting the A320 version. So I figured, why don't we take a gamble on it? I don't even know if this board works yet. But the differences between the A520 chipset and the A320 chipset, very minimal. It seems like maybe they added a little bit more PCI 3.0 lanes and got rid of the last little bit of 2.0 that was there, which is good for things like NVMe SSDs and other peripherals and things like that. But yeah, as far as actual basic functionality, it's pretty much the same as A320. Although I don't think it supports any older Ryzen chips. So Ryzen 1000, 2000 series, not happening on here. It needs to be 3000 or above. And we are indeed putting a 3000 series chip in here, so we're in good shape as far as that's concerned. They put the sticker on upside down. I just noticed that. Here's a good look at the I/O there. It's a pretty basic I/O. I wish I had DisplayPort, but that's fine. We're not even going to be using the onboard video anyway, because the chip we're using does not have onboard video. Here's what the motherboard can do. Here's what A520 can do. 3rd gen and further series processors. Now, the one thing I have heard about these boards, both from friends and from reviews I've read online, is that the A520M HDV from ASRock, it comes with a really flaky BIOS. So the first thing that needs to be done when this thing is powered up is to fix up the BIOS so that it's not so flaky and weird. So we're definitely going to do that. As far as what I'm going to do with this B365M HDV, I'm probably just going to stick this board in a bag and keep it somewhere. It still works, but it's just not good enough to be in a desktop. It's more server material for me, just because when I have a board and a server, I tend to not use the peripherals, because it's got some decent stuff on it. It's got a nice M.2 slot, so it's a modern enough board that I could use this as a server if I needed to. So, still useful board, but not needed in a desktop, so we're going to can it for now. So I'm going to take this out, and we're going to assemble this board. What amazes me opening this box is that board looks like it's in great shape, but it has all the accessories with it. Look at that. I would not have expected that from a Amazon warehouse purchase. That's kind of cool, actually. So we've got the I/O shield, we've got the SATA cables, we've got the CD and the manual and all that stuff. So we even have the screw for the M.2 drive. So that's fantastic. Here's a better look at the board we're taking out of here. Pretty simplistic motherboard. Nothing crazy about it. I don't even think we have much RAM to work with in this system right now. I think that's a 4 gig stick. I'll find that out when I take it out of there. But one thing I noticed about this system that I found was interesting is that the X16 slot is in the middle of the board, and both of these other slots have cutouts, so you can fit bigger cards in there. So that's an unusual attribute of this system. That might actually be useful for server stuff as well. So definitely going to keep a hold of this board in case I need it for something. But this board's what's going to be put in there, and it's basically the same layout, but with a much better chipset. Here's a better look at the new board. It doesn't have as many slots here, but I don't really plan on using too many of those. I plan on using the X16 slot, really, and that's about it. But otherwise, it's a pretty sparse board. It doesn't even have heat sinks on the VRMs, so you know, it's not made for chips like a 3900X or something like that. Yeah, it's an HDV board from ASRock, so it's one of those sort of it's bare bones, but it's a workhorse. And the one thing, and right now I'm at the board prep stage, and the one thing I always do is I screw the M.2 screw into the little post there, just so I don't lose it. So if I put an SSD in here later, the screw's already there. And just a tip for those of you that build these machines. The other thing I have to do is take these brackets off so we can put AMD stock cooler on there that's from this century. one of these, you know, since I just screw directly into the back plate. Don't need the brackets for the old AMD coolers anymore. So that's what we're going to use. And I need to take the RAM from the other board and put it in here. I just realized that. So that's the prep stage. I'm going to do all that, and then we'll show you what CPU we're going to be using. Alright. We are prepped for CPU. And you might ask what CPU we're going to be using. I happen to just have a Ryzen 3 3300X. Remember those? Remember how hard they were to get? Time in eBay, man. Time in eBay. I managed to get one, and I used it for quite a while in another A320 based build. But I since upgraded one computer and shuffled a bunch of CPUs around, and this one ended up in its box. So Now it's going to get used again to make this computer less of a pile of crap. So this 3300X will go into the A320M HDV. And to give you a good idea of the 3300X's performance, if you've ever had a Ryzen 5 1600, it's pretty much that. It's the same performance without some of the weird teething issues that first gen Ryzen had. So it's still good performance. It's great performance, actually. So it'll be really nice in this particular system. So let's put it in, shall we? I gotta clean it up too. This chip is a little nasty. I just didn't care when I put it away, I guess. But well, after a little cleanup, we'll put it in there. Beautiful. Alright, look at the progress we've made. The board is in there. The drives are all connected. I got my extra card edge stuff, or not card edge stuff, but my extra brackets in there for USB and eSATA. But we're missing one thing, a GPU. What do we do during these last 2 years of not being able to buy a GPU? Well, the answer to that is to buy a crappy GPU that's somehow still useful. May I present the NVIDIA Quadro P400. Not a powerful graphics card. Not a super expensive one either. I bought this last year sometime. Not an expensive card, not a powerful card. In fact, a very weak card. But, at the same time, a very useful card, and I'll tell you why. The Quadro P400 supports NVENC, and that is really good if you want to use Handbrake on a computer to convert a bunch of stuff. Not only that, but this thing can also output 4K at 60 Hz, at least on Windows. I haven't been able to get that to work on Linux, but on Windows it can do that. So it's a good video output, and it's a good video hardware acceleration card. As far as that's concerned, and it's also, in this case, it's probably going to do both, because we're using a Ryzen 3 3300X. We need to use a GPU. Now, I had two choices. I could have used a GT710, or I could have used a P400, and the P400 is way better, so that's what we're going to use. And for those of you that don't have much experience messing around with the lowest end Quadros you can buy, we'll show you what one looks like. Aw, look at it. Isn't it adorable? Look at that little fan, which doesn't get that loud, surprisingly. So this is a 2 GB card. I think it's a 64-bit memory bus. It only has 3 video outputs, which are all mini DisplayPort, which is nice. I have converters for DisplayPort and HDMI. Card came with DisplayPort converters. I had to buy the HDMI ones. Puny card, very small, not powerful, but it's got NVENC. And NVENC is awesome, so it's being put in here. It runs off of the slot at the 75 watts, so it's a perfect fit for this machine, and this is what we'll be using for video output. And there it is, sitting in there comfortably amongst everything else. So we have a computer that is not very good for gaming, but is very good for productivity, actually. So you can do a lot with cheap hardware. This is a Ryzen 3 3300X, which theoretically would have been cheap if it wasn't so rare at the time. So you could think of it as a 3100 as well. But just think of it as a low-end Ryzen chip with a low-end Quadro here. This could video edit. This could definitely video edit as far as the things that I've chosen for this machine. It could do it. This is much better than just the Celeron, I can tell you that. So can't wait to fire this thing up and see if the board even works. That's going to be a thing. And we also might need to install Windows to update the BIOS on this machine. So since my workshop right now is an absolute disaster area, we are going to take this over to my 4K TV, and do it that way. So we button this thing up and we'll drag it over there and we will test it out. Never mind. I looked in another system I have on an off chance, and I found 16 gigs of RAM. Screw 4 gigs of RAM, we're putting 16 in here. Oh yeah, I am so glad I looked. That 4 gig stick can go in the other system that I pulled all this RAM out of, and we're going to have 16 gigs of RAM in here. This is going to be a better system than I thought, so this is indeed going to be the sleeper again. This is some GL Evo Potenza RAM. Not very high-end RAM, not very good RAM, but RAM, nonetheless, it works. It's 2400, so it's... No, not 2400, 24,000. I forget what speed this RAM is. We'll look in the BIOS and see exactly what that is. But it has a Ryzen sticker on it, so might as well use it in a Ryzen system, right? And it's 16 gigs, so that'll be great. Oh my god, this is going to be awesome. Scepter. You can do it. Yeah! Okay, I've got the TV hooked up. I've got the computer, the little beige boy over there, the sleeper. We are going to give this thing a shot. Let's see if there's an operating system on it. I think there is. But it's probably not the right OS. There, I turned it on. Let's see what happens. Sounds like it's detecting the CPU based on the fan speed changes. It's trying. Computer. Hey, there it goes. It just took 80 years to post, that's all. Delete. Hey, there we go. Now we got something to look at. Okay. Now, as you can see, we have it's the A520M HDV with BIOS P1.10. I don't know how new or old that is, but it thinks it's 2017 in the corner. So, we do indeed have 16 gigs of RAM. That is awesome. So, what is the XMP setting? Oh, it's 3000. Okay, so this is low quality memory. So, I'm going to set that manually to 2933 because 3000 megahertz memory is not that good. So we're going to do 2933 since that's a standard speed, and it's probably in actuality what that is, because I've heard that DDR3000 was defective DDR for 3200 or something like that. So I'm going to run it at 2933. We want to turn the TPM on, especially for Windows 11 in case I ever use that. You definitely want virtualization support and things like that. CPU virtualization's turned on. Okay, that's good. Oh, we have instant flash. Excellent. So this means we can go download the latest BIOS for this, put it on a USB stick, and install it on here. That would be fantastic. It also has the SSD secure erase tool. That's actually very nice. So, let's check out the hardware monitor. Looks like the CPU temperature is fine. That CPU heatsink grease has definitely not cured yet, so I'd expect it would lower a little bit in temperature. Okay, I'll leave that alone. Okay, let's see if there's an operating system on here. I think Linux is still on this, but we will know for sure soon enough. Definitely need to update the BIOS, though. Meep. Ah, we don't have an operating system. Interesting. Interesting. Well, what we could do to make updating the BIOS easy is install Windows. I just happen to have Windows 11 on a Micro Center USB stick here, and we're going to shove that into this computer, and we'll install Windows 11 and get up the BIOS and stuff up to date, and test the machine out at the same time. In case you're wondering, this is a 43-inch 4K TV as well, so 4K stuff looks extra small on it in the case of a computer, but in the case of video, it looks fantastic. Oh, look how small that is! Oh man, I'm gonna have to squint to see this. No, but I don't to see that. Okay, Microsoft. Oh, that's so tiny. I don't have a product key. Let's install Windows 11 Pro because Home Edition of Windows has been pretty much useless since Vista. This PC can't run Windows 11. But it can. But it can, my friend. Okay, let's try this again. And make sure it'll work. I changed the Secure Boot stuff to standard. And I'm hoping that'll fix it. It does. Ugh. Well, I guess we're going to use Linux to do this. Whatever. You know what? You might have to update the BIOS to get it to work with Windows 11. I just realized that. So, we might have to do that no matter what. Okay, Windows didn't work out. Kept saying the PC couldn't run it even though I had TPM enabled and all that stuff, so I'll look into that later. I'm not really concerned about it because this computer's not going to be running Windows. It is going to be running Linux anyhow, so I'm just not going to bother. This is Manjaro KDE. And since we have an NVIDIA graphics card in this system, Manjaro makes it really easy. You can boot with the open source drivers or the proprietary drivers. And generally when it says proprietary drivers, they mean you have an NVIDIA card. By the way, it's been a while since we talked about this. Manjaro is the desktop Linux distro I've pretty much exclusively switched to, and I've been using it for a long time now, and I'm very happy with it. So this is sort of my standard distro these days. Unfortunately, the ports on the front of this beige case are USB 2.0 rather than USB 3, so it's going to take a while for this to boot. Didn't think that went through, did I? I should plug it into the back. And as you can see, it only runs at these displays at 30 Hertz. For some reason, it only runs this TV at 30 Hertz on Linux, but on Windows, I can hit 60 Hertz. I don't understand. I think that's a limitation of this TV more than anything else. So jeez. Love it when my keyboard doesn't work for a while at first. Okay, let's bring this down to a resolution that's actually visible. Where's 1080p? There it is. Let's check out KSysGuard and see what we're working with. Look at all those GPUs. Look at all those CPUs there. 15 or 16 gigs of RAM there. So we have 4 physical cores and 8 logical cores, which is pretty good. You know, for a low-end chip, that's great. What are you doing, Linux? Alright, a lot of Starship, Matisse stuff. It looks like all that stuff is from the CPU itself, because the 3300X is, of course, 3rd generation Ryzen. It sees the Quadro P400. We're in good shape here. So this is what a Quadro P400 can do. Like, it can get you a decent video output at pretty good resolutions. Now, what we really need to do is update the BIOS. So, let's go look at ASRock's website actually, and see how far behind. We were on version 1.10, if I recall. So let's go look at ASRock's website and see what... ooh, the masterpiece. The Awakening. Keep gaming. Ooh, a Tai Chi. That's a nice board. Anyway, we're going to look at the website and figure out how far behind our BIOS is. So it seems like the computer at least works fine. So we have the A520M HDV. Let's search for that, and there it is. All right, what version of the BIOS do we have? BIOS? 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 Show me your BIOS images. Why? What? BIOS. Oh, wow. Okay, so 1.10 is the original patch. And all it really did was enable the support for Ryzen 5000 series processors and update AGESA a little bit. You see this right here? Look at that. You actually need version 1.9 for Windows 11 to work. Wow, that's interesting. And that was released back in August of 2021, it looks like. So, yeah, that's the COVID talking there. Yeah, we need to update this BIOS. It's woefully out of date. So, I wonder if we can flash from 1.10 straight up to 1.9. That would be, or 1.10 up to 1.90. That would be ideal. All right. Okay, so updating this BIOS should be a standard procedure. You just extract it. You make a FAT32 USB stick, and you run it from the BIOS. So that'll be easy. So let me put this on a USB stick, and we'll get the ball rolling. Yeah. Okay, I have prepared a flash drive with the ROM in its zip folder and the ROM extracted from its zip folder. So let me close this down. And I'm going to shut the computer down, actually, and pull my Linux USB stick out of there. Hey, look at that. It actually posted at the correct resolution. That's a first. Okay, instant flash. Please go to advanced CPU configuration to oh, I have to disable TPM to do this? Oh, man. They don't make this easy, do they? They don't. Okay, TPM has been shut off. So you have to shut off the TPM to enable the BIOS. That's interesting. I guess that's a security feature. I have not used TPM for actual IT security before. I've only ever used it for, I think, BitLocker once and for Windows 11 compatibility. So now we should be able to use Instant Flash. There it is. And there it is. Now we shall update this BIOS. Now, with these newer BIOSes, in my experience, it generally takes a while. And it's not raining outside. It's a nice day out, so I don't think we're going to lose power. So it's just got to sit here and run this BIOS update. So we're going from version 1.10 to 1.90. And 1.90 is just new enough for Windows 11 compatibility, so that's perfect. And then we will test the system out by installing Windows 11 to make sure it works. Even though I'm probably not going to end up with Windows on this computer at all. I just don't need to pay for the license for it. It's not necessary. But it's good to test to see if it works, so that if in the future I need it, it's there. So I intend to use this computer in the workshop area. Not really sure what I want to use for a setup yet. That's probably going to be part of the next computer video, which hopefully which I'm probably going to do when I'm not sick with COVID-19, because yeah, that speaks for itself. It's been absolutely miserable. So I'll probably do that when my voice is better. Hey! Alright. Reboot. And hopefully this BIOS update will have enabled the ability to install Windows 11 without too much of a problem. As long as it posts, we're good. And I'm going to have to go back through the BIOS settings again and tweak everything. Hey, there we go. Yeah, the BIOS completely reset itself. So I'm probably going to have to move the memory back and turn virtualization on and all that happy stuff. I wonder if the reason that people return some of these boards is because of the flaky BIOS that first version is, apparently. Yeah, it's back to 2133. Okay, let's try the Windows drive again and see if it's compatible. Yay, there we go. Alright, let's boot from the Windows USB stick again. And hopefully this time, it can be installed properly. Really? It didn't boot? Yeah, this BIOS is a little weird. Now it should work. Hey, there we go. Wow, and it actually loads it at a different resolution. That's really weird. Huh. That before and after is quite bizarre. Alright. I don't need a product key. We're just testing it, so it doesn't matter. We'll do 10 Pro because home editions of Windows have not been useful since Windows Vista. Yep. Let's install it on the SSD. We saw Linux running on it. Why don't we see Windows run on it? Looks like it can be installed, so that's good news. I'm not going to take you through an installation of Windows. That's pretty boring. So I'll come back after it's loaded and everything. And we'll look at it just to see it booted. Hey, look at that. Windows 11 installed just fine. Let's check the device manager. Well, there you go. Windows does indeed install and work. But Windows is not going to be running on this machine in the end, so what we're going to do is we're going to shut it down. And we're gonna install Linux, because this is my channel and this is what I do. Proprietary drivers, of course, because we have an NVIDIA card in here. Normally on Linux, that's a big pain in the ass, but Manjaro makes that pretty easy to deal with, and so does Pop! OS too, from what I understand. They just build it into like the ISO you use or just a boot option. Manjaro uses a boot option. Pop! OS I think uses a separate ISO. So, distros give you options now that make dealing with proprietary drivers a lot easier. But my distro of choice these days, as I said earlier, is Manjaro, and that's for several reasons. Mostly because of software availability and the ability to centralize the update system and installing software from various sources. Just it consolidates everything, and I think that's useful. So, yeah, there you have it. Okay. Alright, we gotta make this 1080p, because I can't see it. I can't see anything. COVID, Except I actually am sick with COVID this time, so that's not even a joke. But what's also not a joke is Manjaro, so let's install that. The installation process of Manjaro is pretty darn easy. We're going to do just a disk erase. We're going to install it on the SSD. We're going to do a swap file rather than a swap partition, because it's just easier to deal with it that way. Install it, and there you go. Just fill out the forms and it's all installed. Alright, here we go. we're about to wipe out Windows and install this. Let's do it. This is Manjaro KDE edition, by the way. I tend to like XFCE and KDE as far as distros go. Or desktop environments go right now in Linux. KDE really seems to do it for me. I saw Linus from Linus Tech Tips say Dolphin was garbage, and I'm like, hey, Dolphin's actually kind of nice. So, to each their own, I suppose. But there you go. It's installing quite swimmingly. If you're a GNOME person, I can recommend the GNOME version of Manjaro. It's actually very good. It has a lot of extensions already installed that make it very customizable, so you don't have to go hunting around. It's all there already. This distro won the convenience award from me, and that's why I tend to use it. Yeah, bootloader. Yeah, post install. Alright, and we're finished, so I will hit reboot now, and restart now, rather. And it'll restart right now. Beep. And it should boot straight up. Oh yeah, look at that. Can't even see it either because it's at 4K again. I gotta switch it to 1080p. Alright, we got it. Oh no, except that it's at 30 hertz. 60. 60, please. Oh, sweet heaven. Well, there you go. We have a full system. Yeah, here we go. Now we have a very capable Linux machine. Pipewire. We have a very capable Linux machine that is going to be used probably in the workshop area, not for gaming at all, for productivity purposes and things like that. So this is going to be nice to have in that room, and it'll be hooked up to either another TV like this one or possibly a monitor. I'm not sure which yet, but yeah, there you have it. It's just going to do a massive update of Manjaro here up to a much newer version, and it'll be perfectly capable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Handbrake on here and show you what that little Quadro is capable of as far as video encoding is concerned. So for those of you interested in that part, we'll get to that once I've updated this here and installed Handbrake. Okay, I've updated it and we've reached a point where I can launch Handbrake. Now, this is the reason why you'd want to choose a P400, is if you're doing work like this, or you're using a video editor or something like that. Let's go to the video encoding tab, and here's the options you get from a P400. It's the same sort of NVENC you'd get from a 1050 Ti or a 1080 Ti or something from the 10000 series that NVIDIA has. You get 8-bit H.264 acceleration, and you get 8-bit H.265 acceleration, which is good enough for most people. It's good enough for streaming, actually. You could use the NVENC off of this card as a dedicated NVENC card for streaming if you really wanted to. Let's say you stream older games. You really don't need a lot of graphics power for older games, like Super Nintendo games or whatever. You could use the NVENC on this card to stream. No problem. And you could use the H.265 as well, which would be a much better quality, assuming whichever site you're streaming to supports that. But this is what the P400 gives you. It's an absolute weak sauce GPU in the graphics department, but in the video department, it is awesome. So that's the reason I chose it for this build, and I'm glad that I found some decent RAM that I had, and that we had this card. So honestly, the P400 saved this build from being kind of useless. And that's the reason I chose it. This is going to end up in the other room in that workshop area that's a bit of a disaster right now. So eventually, once it's there, it'll probably be in semi-regular use. So there you go. That was rebuilding the sleeper into less of a sleepy computer and back into the sleeper again. So there you have it. It's been a while since I made a video like this. I hope I do it more often. I just haven't had the motivation. Somehow I found the motivation while being sick with COVID-19. Figure that one out. As I am right now. Good timing, throat. Anyhow, hopefully I'll make some more videos in the future. I kind of want to get back into rhythm. I've been very discouraged by the way the tech world has been the last couple of years, which is part of the reason I haven't made these videos. But stuff like this sort of pulling it together kind of builds, the budget builds, are the most fun to me because nobody talks about them. You know, you can talk about high-end stuff and it's just like, yes, it's good, but this you actually have to sort of justify the use case a lot of the time, and this is one of those builds where you can do that, and that was fun to me. So I think next time I'm probably going to go over what I've done with my PCs in the last couple of years, because I don't think I've really updated you guys too much on that. So we will get to that when I'm less sick, and or not sick at all, preferably. So yeah, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this semi-comeback, I guess. And if you want to reach me on social media, the links are down below. If you want to join our Discord server chat, that link is down below as well. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one, everybody. Ciao. And stay safe out there.